It's first versus second in Sky Bet League One on Monday night, Portsmouth against Bolton, and some people are calling it an early title decider. I'm not. It is in the title, and you've just clicked on it. So, it's worked. Let's break it down. Before we get going with this tactical preview, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe, but most importantly, in the comments below, Pompey and Bolton fans, the supporters of these two teams, let me know how you're feeling ahead of this quite intriguing, fascinating clash in League One. Let's begin with looking at the recent form of these two teams. So although Pompey's 27-game unbeaten run has come to an end, they've won both of their last 2 games in Sky Bet League One since. Bolton have won 10 out of their last 11 games in all competitions. Their last league defeat came in early October. Portsmouth have the second best home record in the league, only losing once, ironically just behind Bolton, who lead the way. Away from home, Bolton sit 5th in the league but have played the joint least number of games on the road. They've still only lost once when it comes to away games. That's pretty impressive. To put it simply, the form of these two clubs reinforce the idea this will be quite an intriguing game between two fantastic outfits. Before we bring out the tactics board and start having some quite in-depth conversations about the big hot topics leading up to this game, it's important we look at the general comparisons when it comes to style of play and maybe start looking at what we could expect from this game. The biggest one is I expect a game of chess between two teams looking for ultimate control. What is the biggest similarity between Portsmouth and Bolton? It's the fact they both want ultimate control and domination. We all want a constant front-footed game, but this match could very easily turn into a very patient and quite intricate clash. One of the biggest indicators of this is the average possession of these two clubs. Portsmouth's is 57.8 and Bolton's is 58.2. Very high numbers, very similar numbers, and a clear indication both sides will look to take control early and be very careful when they get it. Both sides will also play in that mid-block. I've got a feeling this game could be a case of stick or twist. A game all about risk-taking. Who will take that first risk? Which side will take the most risks? And will they pay off? And how will they pay off? I think it's going to be a really quite fascinating tactical battle. There's going to be fine margins. And those fine margins will be quite defining, in fact very defining, because they play very, very similar and they both want to take control, and not every side is going to be able to take control in this game. Only one can for a large spell. I think the team with that large spell of dominance will have a pretty favourable outcome come the end of this game. When it comes to players to watch for Pompey, I've gone with Alex Robertson. Certain players and certain styles just click. Portsmouth and Alex Robertson is a perfect example of just that. Robertson is a player that demands possession at every opportunity, fitting the patient and intricate style that's been deployed by Pompey this season. He's touched the ball 955 times during the campaign. That's in the top 2% compared to all other players in the division. He can dribble, drive into space, pass from distance, and produce creative and goal-scoring output. For even more discussion on Alex Robertson and the impact he has on this Pompey team, more on him later on in this video and looking at the tactical battles and the key battles within this fixture. Even more chat, go and check out the latest Pompey video looking at their season so far. It's a quite interesting watch. I personally think a lot of people have watched it and have given me some quite nice feedback. So if you are interested, that's the one to go to. Lots more on Alex Robertson in that one. For Bolton, I've gone with Josh Sheehan. I can see a lot of similarities between him and Alex Robertson. More on them together and a key battle between those two players later on. I spoiled it a little bit there. The technical ability is stunning. One of the best players on the ball in this league. The ball sticks to his foot. It doesn't require pace, but dictates the game from a slightly deeper position. That's, I'd say, the biggest difference between Sheehan and Robertson. You say Sheehan operates more in that number 6 position, just in front of that back 4, but he can get hold of the ball. He'll want the ball from his centre-backs, drive, create, and distribute into those key areas as quickly as possible. He is a creator. 5 assists, that's the top 5% for creative output. His nimble ability on the half-term sees him in the top 2% for fouls won. Very, very similar to Robertson in that case, forcing opposition players to foul him in really good areas. He's that quick on the ball, but again, doesn't have a blistering amount of pace, but his technical ability is a sight to behold at times, and a big reason why Bolton have been quite fantastic going forward. So to the tactics board we go. You can see on the screen now some potential lineups for both Portsmouth and Bolton heading into this game. Let's begin with the first topic, the first conversational point, the Joe Morrell debate. Does he come straight back into this 11? He's been suspended for 2 games. Of course, Pompey have won both of those 2 games while he's been out with a suspension after that red card he got against Blackpool a couple of weeks ago. Does he come straight back into this team for this game? Why is it such a big debate? I think that's important and a good place to start. Is it sensible to change the team that's played brilliantly and picked up a great result on the road against Northampton a week ago? Things to bear in mind. Alex Robertson's form in that number 8 position. He's been fantastic. He's played much deeper. He's played in a double pivot with Marlon Pack. Well, I think we've seen the best of Robertson playing in a more deeper position. He gets hold of the ball more. He gets given the ball on more occasions. He has been a sight to behold in a more deeper position. The form of Pompey without Joe Morrell has been pretty good. You know, they won both of those games. Difficult away fixtures against Bolton and Northampton for different reasons, but they've come out of that very well. 6 points from a possible 6. However, the form of Joe Morrell over the course of the year has been fantastic. And when you look at players that have been consistent over an entire year, the back end of last season, which wasn't very good, let's be honest, Joe Morrell did leave with great credit across that season. And that can't be forgotten. 2 games over, a huge amount of games in 2023. That can't be overlooked. And he has been fantastic. Clearly, John Mousinho fancies him a lot. The opposition is important to bear in mind too, and the bravery of John Mousinho when it comes to picking a team. What will he go with? Will he be brave and quite bold? I think either way, he's going to make a bold decision because there is a conversation to have for both sides to it. You can see on the screen now I've got with Joe Morrell in that 11. I asked Twitter, I asked Pompey fans, I said, what would you do? Does Joe Morrell come straight back into this team? And the general consensus was he doesn't. He doesn't come straight back into this 11, and Robertson should start in a double pivot with Pack, Sadie in a 10, or, you do something a little bit different, Yengi up top. There's rumours of Colby Bishop. You can see some subs on the bench there to the right. Bishop, I know a few weeks, there's a bit of a maybe conspiracy, should I say, that John Mousinho could bring him into an 11, and that could be a slight double bluff. Even if that isn't the case, Sadie comes in and stays in that number 10 position, and Yengi remains the number 9. But in this case, I've gone with Joe Morrell playing in that double pivot with Pack, and deep down, my gut says that's what John Mousinho will do. I think he will play Joe Morrell and Pack, Robertson in the 10, Sadie or Yengi. I'd probably edge Sadie for this game. We'll come on to that battle with Santos in a little while, and that probably does sway me slightly on the striker position. But it comes to that midfield, I think he's going to go with Joe Morrell and Marlon Pack and Robertson in the 10. I don't think that brings the best of Robertson, and the question I pose to you is, what's better? What's more important? The best Robertson or the best Joe Morrell? And that's ultimately how you decide this. What right now is the most important thing for Pompey and gives Pompey the best chance of winning this game? I think in previous Pompey years, there's been a squad there that you get suspended for 10 games. You walk straight back into it because of the fact you're a better footballer than the options that have come in and replaced you. That's now different. This Pompey team is better. This team is able to still provide results when key players are missing. And Joe Morrell is still a key player, but like I said, in the last couple of years, maybe he gets suspended for 2 games and he walks straight back in because that squad isn't good enough. The depth isn't quite as good. Now you've got players like Robertson who comes in and does a fantastic job moving him out of that position. I think both will start. I think Robertson will definitely start. But you're moving him out of his position that he thrived in recent weeks. And that's going to be harsh and that's going to be quite controversial, I'd say. When it comes to that striker debate, Sadie or Yengi, I mean, if they go with Morrell coming out of the side, you'd expect Robertson to come back in that number 8 position, slightly deeper. Sadie and Yengi do both start the same 11 that played against Northampton. But if it is one or the other, I'd probably go Sadie for this game. A slight edge on the fact that he's got a bit more experience in this game. I think when you look at Santos, that is going to be a game of experience. A bit more physical, back to goal presence is important, and Sadie does offer that more than Yengi. Yengi, getting behind, I think, as a substitute, that can be really, really effective. He is a bit more pacier, and he can get in behind and give Santos a bit of a run around later on in the match. To start, I'd go with Sadie's back to goal, link-up play is better. So I'd probably go with him if it is one or the other. Of course, that could be harsh on Yankee because I thought against Northampton he was pretty good. So dropping him will be a difficult one. But maybe they both start if, John Mousinho does go with something a little bit different and allows Joe Morrell to have to prove himself coming off the bench and working his way back into this team that has performed, like I said, over the last 2 games. Moving on to Bolton, they've got midfield dilemmas too. Maghoma, Thomason, Morley, Dempsey. What goes on there? Who is the preferred pair? I've gone with Maghoma and Thomason. Those are the 2 that started against Oxford. And of course, Dempsey and Morley were both available for that game, and Ian Evatt favoured those 2 players. I think Thomason's been fantastic. When you look at their recent form, he's been a key part of that. I think he's a fantastic option. I think he will start. And I've gone Maghoma because I thought against Oxford, maybe wasn't his brightest game, but I think he's probably worked his way into that starting position. I think it will be between him and Dempsey. I think Morley will struggle to start this game. I think it's Maghoma or Dempsey for that second midfield position. I've gone with Maghoma. He's very athletic. He's deceivingly quite tall, but can get around the pitch quite quickly with those long limbs of his, and he's going to drive into space and he's going to cause problems. Thomason, slightly more defensive. I think when you look at trying to complement each other, those 2 have looked very, very good. They're the pair that beat Exeter 7-0 and got a good point away against Oxford United. So I think they're going to be the preferred 2. Williams, I think, comes back in at left wing-back. He's a fantastic left wing-back, injured in recent weeks. I think he comes straight back into that position. Charles and Adebayo will lead the line. They have got options up top. Budvarsson, of course, as you can see on the right-hand side. But I think he's going to go with Adebayo and Charles, both looking to get in behind on Raggett, who isn't the quickest, and Shocknessy, who, has been very good. But Charles is a great striker on his day, can cause any defender problems. When it comes to key battles on the pitch, I've highlighted a few. The first one being Sheehan and Robertson. I expect them to be operating in very similar positions. If Robertson is playing in that number 10 and Sheehan continues to play in that number 6 spot, I think they're going to find themselves in a lot of areas quite often. Sheehan slightly deeper, looking to dictate the game for Bolton in a more deeper area. Robertson slightly higher in that number 10 position if he does operate there and start in that spot. But either way, very similar players. I watched them both in the same week. I was so impressed. Both want to get hold of the ball at every single opportunity, drive and dictate the tempo of this game for their side. And when it comes to being great in transition, again, they're very, very good at progressing the ball forward, picking it up, and like I say, getting the attackers on the ball as quickly as possible by being great in possession. And ultimately, both those 2 players have that intention. So that's going to be really interesting. I think that the player that plays better, ironically, and it might sound obvious, I think that the player that plays better in this game is going to be a huge reason why one of these sides has a more favourable night, because they're that important and they're that good and they're that influential. The second one, I've gone with Yengi or Sadie versus Santos. In this case, I've gone with Sadie and Santos. A little bit obvious, it's a striker against a centre-back, but I think it's going to be quite a physical battle. We look at Santos, you think of him as a very, very good defender and one of the best defenders in Sky Bet League 1. We've seen a real improvement in Bolton. They had quite a patchy start to the season, but since Santos has come in and the skipper has come in and he's controlled that back 3. He's controlled it, he's settled it, and they look much better, much more comfortable defensively with Santos at the back, centrally at the back, looking like an absolute rock. Defensively, on a different level with him in that side, he's going to be a really quite difficult player to play past. If they've got Sadie or Yengi, I think it's going to be difficult for them. Colby Bishop, of course, it's probably a different conversation. I don't think he will start. There is a bit of a conspiracy that he could play, and John Mousinho is maybe double bluffing and going to throw a bit of a surprise in there. I think if it is Yengi or Sadie, Santos, he probably will come out on top. I could be wrong. He could get exposed, but Santos is that impressive. I think it could be the wider players in this Pompey team being slightly more important. The final battle I've gone with is Sparks and Cogley. Let's highlight that for you there. I think it's going to be a really quite fascinating clash between these 2. Both want the licence to get hold of the ball and get on the board in advanced areas in those wide areas, and not both will. If they both do, it could be a defensive nightmare, because they have very, very important roles out of possession too for their sides, but in possession they want to be very, very forward thinking, pushing up the pitch at every opportunity. Sparks has been a creative genius for Pompey this season. The third most chances created, the third best XG for assists per 90 as well in Sky Bet League One. Cogley has the third most big chances created, while Sparks sits in second. Again, Sparks edging Cogley and all of those creative stats. You would say that Sparks on a 1v1 defensive level, that is where issues could be occurring. And I do slightly worry with the fact that, with that back four, Sparks at times can be left exposed. And if there is a couple of balls in behind where Sparks doesn't track back or Cogley gets the better of him 1v1, it could be quite a fascinating and quite sobering night, let's say, at the back for Portsmouth. I'm sure, again, John Mousinho and his coaching staff and the tactical people behind this game will be telling Sparks, look, Cogley is going to try and get on the board as much as possible. He's going to try and run you ragged. Of course, that could go out the window. Sparks can pin Cogley back for a long period of time, then Sparks could get the runaround. I think it's probably most likely going to be a bit of both. I think both players are going to have their moments, and both players are going to have their chances and their opportunities to go forward and show their ability in the forward areas. But who's going to be better in those key moments, and who's going to be more influential in those key moments and be more effective when they get in those places? That's going to be the big question. But we know the importance of the fullbacks and the wide areas for these two clubs. Sparks and Cogley, it's going to be really interesting. Robertson and Sheehan, I think it's going to be a really fascinating technical battle. And Santos or Yengi or Sadie, whichever, start for Pompey against Santos. That's going to be a bit more of a physical battle. That's what I expect from there. Of course, there'll be plenty more, and we can't guarantee when you look at these potential lineups. I'm not sure, but that's what I've gone with. And that's going to be really, really interesting, regardless of maybe a few selection differences. There's a lot of quality, but a lot on the line. When it comes to my prediction, I'm sorry, I'm going to sit on the fence. 1-1 is my score prediction. A tight affair, feeling each other out early doors. I expect both teams to have spells of dominance. It's about who is more effective with it. It sounds obvious, but it could be quite patchy at times. I think sides will have their moments when we look at that graph. A bumper episode of the Roundup coming your way on Wednesday, and we'll be looking at this game. Hopefully, it should be a good watch. I think it will be quite tight, but I hope it is an enjoyable watch live on Sky Sports. I expect the graph to be quite patchy, but in the sense that we're going to see chunks of teams having moments in the game, and it's going to be who takes those chances, who's going to be clinical, and who's going to be more effective when they go forward. And as I said earlier, it's going to be about risk taking. Who's going to take the risks, and which of those risks are going to pay off? Stick or twist maybe at times. It's going to be a really, really interesting match, I'm sure of that. But most importantly, let me know in the comments down below, Pompey and Bolton fans, maybe some neutrals watching this game. Where do you see this game going? What is your score prediction? I imagine we've got some quite nervous Pompey and Bolton fans watching this now. This should be out on Sunday. And of course, the game is only, just over 24 hours time probably when it goes live. So it's not long now. Give me your thoughts. I'm looking forward to it. Until next time, I've been Jack. This has been the Jack Ward Football Podcast. And I will see you all very, very soon. Take care.